Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. For this Sketchbook Sunday, we are going to work on the third in a series of paintings of my daughter Lila that I did for a class that I am taking. So the first one was to do monochrome, second was to do a low-key version, and the third is to do a bright high-key version, and that's what you're going to see me work on today. I started off by taking the same drawing that I have used for all three paintings and transferred it onto my 15 by 22 inch sheet of watercolor paper. That's a half of a full sheet. And then I wet the background area, which would be the water, and I put in a mixture of cadmium, yellow lemon, and phthalo blue and kind of let them mix together. I decided to really go wild with the colors since I could use bright colors, and I made some orange with alizarin crimson and cad yellow for the hair, and I used alizarin crimson and phthalo blue and ultramarine blue for the shirt, made that nice and bright and purple. And I also used lots of colors in the water, in the rock, and then I also added some salt water to that just to give it a little bit of granulation and texture. We're going to do a lot of different texture effects on that rock. Because we're using more cool, transparent colors with this, we're going to have to do stuff to make it granulate and texturize a little bit more, like flicking in water and paint into the wet wash in the background there. I decided to start off darker with the skin tone this time because I always seem to get too light. When it dries, it's always a lot lighter than I expect, and I used a mixture of ultramarine blue and yellow ochre and alizarin crimson and burnt sienna for the skin tone. I am also getting in real dark with that shadow on the arm because, again, that's a place I always seem to have to go back in and darken, which I discovered in the last two versions of this painting I did. Now, even though I'm changing up my colors, my goal is to keep the values the same from my monochrome in stage 1, and which I also tried to get my values the same in my low-key version from stage 2. I have a blog post on doing that low-key version. I didn't do a video of it, but if you're interested in that, just go to my my blog and you can read all about that. And now I'm putting in some deep shadows in the hair because, again, I wanted to make sure I didn't get so excited about using bright colors that I completely let the values go out the window. And I have actually moved my filming area so that I would be able to get around on all sides of my painting as I was going and keep it flat so I could work in wet washes. So hopefully it's a better viewing experience for you, and it does give my studio a little more versatility for doing larger projects, which I am really excited about. For the deep shadows and deep color in the leggings, I am using phthalo blue and alizarin crimson and some ultramarine blue and some burnt sienna. So I am using those colors because not only are they going to give me the depth I want, but they also will give me the texture that I want. Even though I was allowed to use black per my instructor's instructions, I didn't want to use black in this. I really feel that I could get, with transparent high key colors, I could get the depth of color that I wanted. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And basically doing this, I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose too much of my lights. I wanted to avoid going with white if at all possible, although sometimes you kind of need it for the volume of certain aspects. That's a great, I'm going to do a whole video on whether or not to use white coming up soon on my channel, so let me know if you're interested in that, and if you have any questions along those lines, because I'll address them in the video. Another part of the lesson that my instructor had given us was to do halation lines, which is, you see it more in like impressionistic oil painting, where like the edge of an object will have its like opposite or split opposite colors on the color wheel, and it just helps give you some vibrancy and kind of light in the painting. So I'll do that in a few areas here, but I don't think it works as well in watercolor as oil paints. But like you can see there, that yellow I put on the edges of the purple shirt to make it glow. That's a example of a halation line in watercolor, but I'll also add a little bit as I get to the dry stage of the painting to kind of lock in the layers. But again, I think that's definitely more of a oil painting benefit than a watercolor benefit. And again, I'm just kind of putting in those shadows like I did in the other leggings. I got a little too bold in those shadows, I think, but I've done that in the other two, so I kind of wanted to keep that consistency. One thing I did to pop out the colors in the kind of foliage around here is I put red branches and little streaks of red here and there to make the greens pop. Now at this point it looks like a summer day, right? It's nice and bright and light. I am going to glaze over the background, which is going to make her look underwater in a few moments. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's kind of it kind of really changed the whole look of the picture. It made it look underwater, and I kind of had wished I painted her like a mermaid at that point. But I also did some rewet wet the arm and put in some like warmth, some yellow towards the top to kind of make it feel like the light was hitting it, and just kind of also make the purple in the leggings stand out and kind of be a little bit more vibrant, kind of working those opposite colors to make other colors stand out. And here you can see starting to add some more to the background. And as I'm doing that, I'm kind of like struggling with how dark I want to get, because if I get the background a lot darker, I'm going to have to brighten her up for contrast. But if I keep it too wishy-washy and light, then she's not going to stand out either, because they'd be too close in the same value. So I just wanted to make you aware of this, because I was working on this painting over the course of a week. So there was a lot of different stops and starts here. And you just got to kind of take a risk and make choices when you're going along. And sometimes they'll work out and sometimes they won't. Sometimes you'll regret a choice that you made, but that's fine, because that's part of the process. Everything is not going to work out perfectly. Sometimes you'll get to that hot mess stage, which I felt like this was kind of like the hot mess stage here. And then you kind of get this attitude when you hit the hot mess stage that, well, I'm not going to make it any worse, so I might as well just jump in and try that thing I wanted to try, but was too afraid of ruining my painting before. My instructor had made a point that I totally agree with. He said, if you're afraid of messing up your painting, if you don't try something because you're afraid of messing up your painting, you're going to be a safe painter and you're not going to grow. And I totally agree with that. And it's nice to hear somebody else say it, actually. Because I think no matter where you are in your journey, you should always try to grow and improve and take risks. So I'm here adding a little bit more to the rocks. I'm adding some yellow ochre. I did decide to go in and add a little bit of white because I had gotten, I couldn't lift up on this paper with all those transparent colors. They're more staining, and I couldn't lift back to the white very well. So I decided to go in and do that with the white paint. And again, we'll discuss white paint coming up in a future video. I also like to do texture by flicking on paint. People have asked me about my rocks a lot. I like to sponge and spatter and stipple and make sure you get those contrasts. So the cracks in the rock, those have got to be super dark, almost black. When you're looking at a pile of rocks, you are going to see hard edges, bright highlights, and deep dark shadows. So you want to make sure that you get those. And I was going in with a little bit of white to pop up the texture and the highlights in the shirt. And also one great use of white is adding volume. White will add volume more than having the white of the paper. So that's a reason why you might want to use it versus just leaving the white of the paper. So I'm not going to get into a debate about white paint in this video, but I will in the white video that I post coming up maybe this week. I think I might be able to get to it this week. So, you know, it's I think if you use it with intent, then you can use it very effectively. If you're just putting it on there because you made a mistake and you want to cover something up, I think the results are always going to be a little disappointing. So just make sure you have intention with whatever color you add and use, and I think you'll be, you know, pleased with the result. As an artist, I have to say it's very interesting to go back and look at a time lapse of a painting that's took a long time, because you can kind of forget the stages you go through, and then to see it come together, it's kind of satisfying. So if you have like a smartphone, those all have time lapse options on them. Consider getting a selfie stick and, you know, somehow rigging up something where you could film yourself painting over the duration and then watching it back in a time lapse. It can give you a lot of insight as to how you paint, and you could also maybe see things that you didn't realize you did. Sometimes when I watch somebody else paint, I'm like, oh, don't do that. But then I don't realize I'm doing something similar when I'm painting. So it'd be a great skill to try. Now that thing there, that stick with the fabric on it, that is a homemade maul stick. I took some cotton balls, stuck it on the end of a drumstick, put a piece of canvas over it, and just wrapped a hair tie around it. I know, wicked fancy, but that is great for bracing your arm when you are painting. I moved the tape because I was feeling like I was done, and although I thought it was painted well, I still was bothered by the upper corner of the painting and how there really wasn't much going on, and I just kind of felt like it was a little uninspiring, so I decided to add some pattern up into that corner by taking a stencil and a makeup sponge with some phthalo blue watercolor on it, just really dry, and I just kind of stenciled on this jumble of numbers, and then I went in with the Chinese white and stenciled on some other numbers, and I didn't like it, so I swirled it out with my brush, and then I decided to put little text bubbles with emojis and little text speak and stuff, and I thought that was a little more playful and fun, and that's how I finished this painting off. Let me know what you think about that last minute additions that I put at the end, and give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you try something challenging yourself today. Until next time, happy crafting.